collaborate with women for transformation. And I chose this topic because it connects to financing, but not in the way that you will usually hear. So bear with me for the next 15 minutes, and then we'll have opportunities for a discussion. A new study of 14 African countries from the World Bank found that businesses run by women are lower performing than run by men. Why? Well, one of the underlying issues is that a great number of women do not complete high school. In addition, there are barriers such as reduced access to financing and people who try to restrict women to certain areas that are considered to be women's territory. In other words, there are structural challenges that we need to address for women to invest their full potential into the transformation of our communities. The study gave us a glimpse into the complex challenges we face in Africa. It is our responsibility to address these complex challenges in order to make Africa work for everyone, and especially for 600 African women. In December 2017, I read the checklist manifesto by Atul Gawande, a surgeon. Gawande argues that collective responsibility on how to get things right. While surgery is about saving lives, businesses are often about investing resources to create wealth. Wealth creation through economic opportunities for women is one of the keys to make collaboration with women for transformation possible. In the operating theater, that collaboration saves lives and at times does not work. In businesses run by women, that collaboration saves lives and at times fails. Gawande posits that it is a combination of skills and expertise while following due diligence on each of the cases presenting in the surgery room that makes a difference in the patient's life. For our purpose, our patient is an employment, especially youth unemployment. Entrepreneurship, education, financing, partnership, and skills form part of a combination that are required to make transformation in our communities a reality. In order to achieve that, we need to deepen our understanding of why. As outlined in the World Bank study, businesses that women run are smaller, less innovative, and create less jobs than their male counterparts. In addition, women earn on average 30% less than men. Ladies and gentlemen, if we accept that agriculture is the foundation of economic transformation, then that sector should give answers, some answers to the challenges we face as a continent. Women seeking to enter agribusiness have to jump a few hurdles without the proper support. Access to land, agricultural markets, recent innovation in farming technologies, agricultural inputs such as seeds and fertilizer, credit and training are limiting women's ability to progress at the pace that is required to sustain change in our communities. But we know that by 2030, agriculture in most Africa, including West Africa, will be a $1 trillion sector. If we fail to reap the benefits of transforming our agriculture, our shift towards services will not cope with the demand from our young people. In trying to solve those challenges, we ought to classify, like Gawande, problems into three groups: simple, complicated, and complex. Thinking of problems in this way, we can help with the many issues that we need to address across West Africa. In particular, we can draw lessons from the operating room when thinking about bridging the gap between access to finance and opportunities for women. In order to achieve these opportunities, we need to arrive at a point where the daily realities of millions of West African women connect the dots between education and skills. These two elements, which form the basis of economic transformation, continue to challenge our fundamentals. Reconnecting education and skills to women economic empowerment is a simple problem that we have not been good at resolving. The study by the World Bank showed that 30% of business women completed high school, compared to 40% of men, with similar statistics for courses on entrepreneurship. But we know that even with this limitation, African women, compared to their peers around the world, work more. And women that don't run businesses are feeding the nation through the commitment to agriculture. With this diversification, the World Bank study indicates that Africa is the only region of the world with a higher number of women business owners. Ladies and gentlemen, they are simple problems that do not require the input of either policymakers or governments, but they still have implications on how complicated and complex problems in businesses will be addressed. An example of a simple problem that business owners need to resolve has to do with data. Reliable data forms the basis of the work of a business aiming to achieve impact for its stakeholders and shareholders. As Gawande demonstrates, in the process leading to establishing the surgery checklist, data play a critical role in getting things right. And for that data to become meaningful, it has to be connected to digital financial services platform, so that across the spectrum of possibilities, women in business captures opportunity to grow and, most importantly, create a dent into unemployment. Financing for transformation often hits the usual suspects: interest rate, asymmetric risk, lack of capital, and policy limitation. I would argue that policies often fail to recognize that 80% of our economies are informal. Thus, some of the requirements that appear simple might be cumbersome. If that is the case, then pooling of resources at the initial stages of a process is a catalyst for impact. Women often share a box that constitutes the savings. Brought together, it's a financing mechanism that has various names across the continent: Tontine in Côte d'Ivoire, Stockvel in South Africa, Susu in Ghana, Pamoja in Tanzania, and other names carrying the same concept of domestic savings. There is innovation to bring this model into the digital financial services space. It is important to have a connection to a financial institution because it provides evidence to regulated systems like banks to assess opportunities and risks to make a decision. This is why data are critical resource that links businesses to financial institutions to address complicated and complex issues. For instance, there is a need for a detailed and comprehensive data feeding into decision in which businesses should be run in West Africa and for which purpose. Given the nature of the environment, a business cannot just be about making money. It needs to have a dual purpose, be profitable, and continue to contribute to the transformation of the African continent. A surgeon cannot act without specific data that provides options to remedy. Most importantly, it cannot act without constant monitoring of key variables such as the heart rate. In our context, the pulse of a continent is young, and 20 million young people poised to join the workforce every year for the next three decades need stronger foundation designed for intergenerational transfers. Ladies and gentlemen, money is often the barrier to entry when we fail to understand that policy and regulations govern the ability for existing institutions in providing financing. There are a number of constraints that fall under three umbrellas. Number one, policy and regulation. Number two, market constraints. And number three, capacity building. Most importantly, under policy and regulation, we can include barriers to capital flows, limited savings, harmonization of regulation, and cost of financing. Among the constraints, we have lack of risk capital, poor financials, and limited innovative financing. Finally, in terms of capacity building, more effort needs to be made in terms of business management skills, planning, asymmetric credit information, and repayment culture to those that have access to credit. Bearing in mind some of these constraints, there's a difference between men and women in terms of access to funding. A recent article in Le Monde, referencing the World Bank study about women in business, states that differences vary between 30 and 70% in terms of access to capital. And this initial capital determines the course of progress for the business. But the real challenge might be in diversifying the industries in which women start their businesses. That is often overlooked factor as we focus our attention on education and financing. If our objective is to create wealth, then there's a case to be made in ensuring that women are not limited by others and the structure of our societies to be confined to textile, clothing, food, and hotel management. We know that transportation, manufacturing, and construction, sectors dominated by men, open more options for economic transformation. Yet, it appears that we continue to see women in certain roles, thus limiting options for people as a whole. Every African country is unique. Economic growth is an indicator of complex issues that converge to deliver on specific outcomes. Experience is one is not a panacea for success in another. Gawande argues that successfully raising one child with a specific set of tools may provide experience, but it does not guarantee success with the next child. How can we rethink the way we assume that highly uncertain outcomes will offer reward for investment? I'll argue that, number one, we need to create a conducive environment to ensure that women's safety is not at stake when they venture into businesses that are predominantly male-dominated. As a society, are we prepared to open the space that is required for women to compete with men for growth and translate into employment for youth? We will all benefit because women build larger and more profitable business when they invest in male-dominated segment. The second one is that we need to pool our resources for lifting the Africa we have towards the Africa we want. There are 350 million Africans that have disposable income today. If we were to ask each one of us to contribute $1 a month, we will raise $4.2 billion in a year. If we succeed, we will be emulating a recipe that worked for China, funding via domestic resources and savings. The third point is to create opportunities for capacity building for women so that skills and education no longer be the excuse because they are as important as funding. Ladies and gentlemen, each country needs to identify its vascular system that will ensure a flow of resources to support community building. Each country also needs to identify its respiratory system that will bring breath of fresh air at critical step, and also the nervous system that defines our individual and collective ability to be resilient. Understanding the different systems that, with the right expertise, allows a surgeon and his or her team to address issues that affect a patient's life and the surgeon's network. In our case, as we reflect about the constraint, we know that savings, pension funds, and tax incentive are part of the virtuous circles that gives life to ideas and create jobs. Our common goal in transforming Africa's economy is a complex issue. We should aim for wealth creation and not poverty reduction. We need to ensure that our recognition of the vital organs that keep the road ahead clear for every woman to lead in the business that bring wealth through employment to communities. As such, I think that we consider agriculture in Africa to be our vascular system because it provides the fuel to keep all organs functioning. Yet we continue to find blocked arteries where young hearts are struggling to use the energy to keep the flow. Youth as our respiratory system because they keep us aware of the necessity of continuous innovation. Our institution represents our nervous system with their policies and regulation. Keeping the right balance is a complex issue that all of us need to understand so that we might become active contributors in the Africa we have. I will conclude by noting that Africa has 600 million women, about half of the African population. Limiting their ability to thrive is delaying the progress we desperately need to create jobs. But African women are not alone in this challenge. Solutions that we find here in Africa will enhance the potential of women across the world. Our responsibility is not just to men and women, but to all those that believe that the world cannot function at half capacity and expect to resolve the challenges that we face. Muchas gracias.
So thank you, Mr. Manlan. Is there any question?
You can ask.
So first, thank you very, very, very much for such a fantastic presentation, and also your poetry of having all the institutions at the vascular system and the nervous system. You know, I'm a medical doctor, so I enjoyed very much all this because in medicine you have the symptoms, you have the diagnosis, and you have the cure. So it all goes also with what you have been saying, that we know now all the challenges, and we know how to address these challenges, but we want the solutions. So with reference to solution, you said many things. You touched on some key points, which is about the skills, the education, the technology, the financial system, which is very, very important. I would kindly ask you to tell, because these business and professional women, they are the heads of organization. They will go back to their countries and will convey your message to them. So, for instance, in ECOBANK, what are the new financial systems that you have with reference to women? And I would like also to illustrate more on the financial digital payment system, because this is a very important thing that would allow many of our women to have interoperability of payment system across borders. And also, would you kindly illustrate for some solutions for the challenges for women to access to credit and finance? And with reference to financial inclusion, does ECOBANK has any special tailored program, financial product for women entrepreneurs that could be different from other banks? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asfo. In terms of financial digital payment, it is the model of a present, and especially of the future. Because if we continue to have a banking rate which is around 20% around the continent, and most of the money is sitting outside of the financial system, it is very difficult to ask banks to be lending money, because banks have to lend based on money which is deposited. So if I give you an example about China, the level of domestic savings was very high, which meant that they didn't have to borrow. Part of the challenge that we face is that on the African continent, with a greater number of Africans that have financial resources, we still don't see Africans as those that we can ask money from. And we continue to go and ask for money outside. So when I give you an example of a savings group that exists in the community, it's a foundation of what could be the answer, because women do save. They find ways to create mechanisms to save, but it's sitting outside of a financial system. Therefore, it's impossible for a bank to understand the source of the money and how this money could be used into that system. So that's number one. We need to ensure that people actually have bank accounts. But for them to have bank accounts, some of the reflections that we're having at ECOBANK is how do we bring people to open a bank account, not because we want them to open a bank account, but it needs to be for a purpose. Some of the current work that we're doing in terms of designing is how do we design health insurance, for example, or insurance for people that are traders, so that if they are sick or if they lose a day of work, they have an alternative through the insurance mechanism. So it's bringing some of the tools that we have in the financial sector. And when I talk financial sector, I'm not limiting myself to the banking sector. I'm also talking about the insurance sector, on how we allow women, specifically, who run businesses and are in the informal sector to have an alternative. But number one, the money needs to come into the bank. I understand some of the challenges that a lot of women and individuals face when they come to the bank. And we have been organizing a group of discussions with young people, with women, to understand from the foundation side, because that's how we're trying to bridge the gap between the bank and the foundation. What are those barriers? And we often hear the issue around the person we speak to doesn't understand our project. That we have taken on board, and we are definitely thinking of how do we resolve that solution. But the second part is that a lot of people come and say, I want credit. And often, actually, they don't need credit. They need working capital, which are completely different things. But if the first thing that comes is that I want credit, it's a different route that you follow compared to wanting working capital. The second challenge that we need to reconcile in terms of this question on access to credit is that there needs to be education on both sides as to what does it mean to come to a bank and what are we asking for, but also the person that is engaged, which is often the loan officer that they engage with. They first need to be an understanding what the business is about and what is the environment. So when I was looking, my reference to the presentation that were here yesterday, there was not much about the context in which these businesses will be operating. There was almost no information about the risk that this business will have. So if we take, for example, the fisheries, that was one of the project that was presented, the numbers look good, but there was no discussion around some of the challenges that this will face. What if all the fish die? What would happen? What do we do with the competition that is coming from other parts of the world, especially China? So those are some of the elements that I think if we find a way to continue to engage with different groups of women, that the banks, through the foundation, understand what is it that we can do to make sure that this works, we can do. Your last question around, do we have specific products for women? The answer today is that we don't, and that's something that we're trying to address, hence me being here, to be able to have this conversation with women that are running businesses, understand some of the challenges that we all know, but also, can we take this conversation also to the regulators? Because ultimately, banks are limited by what the regulators allow them to do. And I was pleased to hear yesterday that in Spain, some of these challenges also happen, where the bank want to see how would they get the money. Because we need to remember that the money which is in the bank does not belong to the bank. It belongs to either shareholders or it belongs to people that deposited the money. So the question is, if we were to give you that money and the person that has put this money wants his money now, can we give it to that person? If the answer is no, it becomes very difficult to find ways to give access to credit. So I think there's education to be done on both sides, and especially reframing the conversation about wanting credit and needing actually a source of financing. My last point, which I think is a key part in what I'm trying to convey, there is money in Africa. There are many more Africans today that have the resources to contribute. And if we continue to not engage this group of Africans, especially the middle class, and assume that they are not part of the solution, we will miss an opportunity. Yes, when you look at taxation on the continent, it is very low, but people do donate money. The example that I often use is an example around funerals. Funerals on the African continent draw a lot of resources. But why is it that we can't do the same when people are alive? And that's something that we need to resolve.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah, it's on, I think.
I can speak really loud, so.
No, because otherwise I
Okay.
cannot translate.
Oh,
But
okay.
Dr. Faye goes first and then you
Okay.
get the mic.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Manlan, pour cette brillante communication. Moi, je voudrais vraiment partir d'un schéma très simple. Vous avez dit que les femmes sont pour l'essentiel dans le secteur informel. Donc, un secteur informel qui n'est pas encadré, qui n'est pas protégé, où il n'y a même pas de protection sociale. Dès que la femme tombe malade, c'est toute son activité également qui est bloquée. Donc, si elle est un pilier, un maillon dans la famille, c'est même toute la famille qui devient vulnérable parce qu'il n'y a plus de revenus pour subvenir aux besoins de la famille. Maintenant, on prend ce cas de figure, on essaie de tirer cette femme-là et on lui dit, on te propose par exemple un crédit bancaire ou bien un peu dans ce qu'on appelle chez nous le microcrédit. Alors, le microcrédit, d'après nos analyses, c'est à la limite une redistribution de la pauvreté. Parce que vous trouvez une personne déjà vulnérable, au lieu de tenter de la sortir de la vulnérabilité, on lui dit non seulement on te donne un prêt, mais voici des charges, en tout cas des intérêts supplémentaires sur lesquels tu dois faire une activité rentable et pouvoir justement rembourser. Et cela est très problématique. Maintenant, concrètement, comment on peut gérer cette question-là? C'est-à-dire, quel est le risque que les banques sont prêtes à prendre pour accompagner cette catégorie vulnérable? À côté du fait qu'elles sont dans le secteur informel, c'est également des femmes qui sont dans l'économie domestique de soins. C'est-à-dire que quand quelqu'un tombe malade, c'est cette femme-là qui va aller s'occuper du malade. Ça veut dire que toute son activité économique est liée vraiment au bien-être de la famille. Quand la famille ne va pas, c'est son activité également qui tombe. Donc, dans un contexte aussi difficile, comment on va tirer l'essentiel de nos femmes? Vous avez dit 600 millions de femmes, c'est extrêmement important. Les femmes ne doivent pas être que des consommatrices, mais des actrices de développement. Et les banques doivent pouvoir mettre en place un dispositif pour accompagner. Nous, pendant longtemps, nous avons théorisé le fait qu'il fallait un guichet unique pour les femmes. C'est-à-dire un guichet au niveau des banques qui permettrait de traiter les problèmes spécifiques des femmes et non pas les prendre comme des clientes comme les hommes. Parce que ce ne sont pas les mêmes réalités, ce ne sont pas les mêmes problématiques. Donc vraiment, j'ai énormément de questions à soulever, mais je pense que je vais m'arrêter là pour dire simplement que nous vous invitons à prendre des risques avec nous. Et au niveau de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, vous connaissez le contexte. L'Afrique de l'Ouest fait partie des 11 pays au monde les plus pauvres. Ça veut dire que vous avez affaire vraiment à une situation extrêmement dramatique et sur laquelle il faut vraiment, vous avez utilisé le langage médical. Je pense qu'il faut vraiment des soins de choc. On ne peut plus se permettre le luxe de réfléchir encore pendant des années, mais il faut aller vers des solutions radicales. Il faut être des urgentistes, sinon c'est l'Afrique de l'Ouest qui est menacée. Merci beaucoup.
Je vais répondre, Dr Faye. Alors, Dr Faye, je pense que les éléments que vous avez soulevés, la question de la protection sociale, la question de l'économie du soin, le besoin de guichets uniques, les thérapies de choc, si on analyse ces différents éléments, il y a très peu qui sont du ressort de la banque. La banque est un des instruments dans un écosystème. Et c'est impossible de demander à une banque de se substituer au processus de développement d'un pays quand les lois qui sont en vigueur dans le pays ne lui permettent pas de le faire. Vous êtes basé à Dakar. La Banque centrale de l'Afrique de l'Ouest régit les conditions dans lesquelles les banques sont prêtes à travailler. Et vous savez très bien que pour chaque crédit qui doit être donné, il y a certaines conditions qui doivent être mises en place. Et je pense que beaucoup de ces problèmes, je le soulevais dans mon analyse, c'est que beaucoup de personnes qui ont eu accès au crédit se sont mal comportées. Ce qui crée ensuite une situation où celles qui ont vraiment un vrai projet à financer se retrouvent dans une position où c'est pratiquement impossible. Donc je pense qu'il y a aussi ce travail-là à faire au niveau de nous-mêmes, en s'assurant que si une personne dans la communauté, et un peu comme ça se passe dans les groupes de savings group, où chacune des femmes qui est dans ce groupe s'assure de la responsabilité des membres de ce groupe. Si on se retrouve dans une situation où une de ces femmes ne contribue pas, les autres ont une forme de s'assurer que cette personne y contribue. La responsabilité de la banque, je ne suis pas en train de la nier, dans le fait qu'aujourd'hui, c'est vrai qu'on a besoin de ressources financières. Mais se tourner vers une seule entité en disant que c'est la banque qui va résoudre tous les problèmes de l'Afrique de l'Ouest ou du continent africain, il y a un petit problème là. Pas parce que la banque ne peut pas le faire, mais dans le contexte dans lequel on évolue, où la majorité des Africains sont des consommateurs et pas des gens qui épargnent, c'est une équation qui est difficile à résoudre. Le rapport de McKinsey il y a quelques années, il y a 2 ou 3 ans, indiquait que les Africains allaient dépenser 1,4 million de milliards d'ici à 2020 en produits de consommation. On devrait se poser la question, est-ce que nous allons économiser 1,4 million de milliards d'ici à 2020 ? Ceci n'est pas le cas. Sans économie, c'est impossible d'avoir un système bancaire qui est prêt à prêter. L'argent, et ça c'est souvent le mécanisme qu'on n'arrive pas à comprendre entre nous. Tant qu'on n'a pas des Africains tant qu'on a des Africains qui sont des consommateurs, on aura moins d'argent disponible pour prêter. Je reconnais sur la question qui sont liées à la protection sociale, d'où les discussions qu'on a en ce moment pour trouver un mécanisme pour s'assurer qu'une femme qui est dans le secteur informel, qui doit subvenir aux besoins de sa famille parce qu'il y a des questions de santé, il y a une assurance qui se met en place. La semaine dernière, nous avons eu ces discussions avec Allianz, la compagnie d'assurance qui est basée européenne, qui est basée maintenant, qui a son pôle Afrique, qui est basé entre Abidjan, Nairobi et Casablanca, pour trouver une solution à cette question. Parce que pour nous, nous nous sommes rendus compte que demander, pour la question de l'inclusion financière, demander à des personnes d'ouvrir un compte en banque, si elles n'ont pas de revenus ou si elles n'ont pas accès à une alternative quand ils sont dans une situation difficile ne résout vraiment aucun problème. Donc les problèmes que vous posez sur la table sont tout à fait légitimes, mais ce n'est pas que la responsabilité d'une banque de régler. Merci.
Oui. Bon, Enaka.
Sorry.
All right. So my question is a few things that I think you mentioned. So first, when I moved to the Gambia in July, prior to that, actually, we opened a bank with an account with ECOBANK for a couple of our businesses. And the first thing that I noticed is that, the amount of fees that's being charged for a commercial account. And so my question is, what is the bank doing that's going to be intentional about lowering those fees so people can access those accounts? So, for example, we talked about women or people, Africans in general, not depositing in their money in the banks. I think majority is the fees that the banks charge. So if you're going to put in your dollars, and I know it's happening here in Spain as well. It's very different in the United States, where it's more, I feel like the regulations are a little bit more different. But if you're going to put in 100 euros or $100, and then you're going to get charged $20 on a monthly basis, they'll rather not keep that. So that's one thing that I noticed. I mean, we have an account, like I mentioned, with ECOBANK, and the amount of fees that I'm paying, I question myself why I'm still banking. But again, that's what's available there. So for anybody, a woman who has a farm or growing chicken or laying eggs or whatever their business is, to put in that amount of money and then get charged, they might not be able to afford that. So that's one. Number two is, we talked about access to credit or working capital, but we know that women have the three issues of credit, capital, and collateral. So with, especially with collateral, I know that in the African society, most women are not allowed to own homes. Or if you do, it's your husband's. And when your husband passes, it's your son's. So they don't even have collateral to put in. So what are we doing then to change that? So we can create, programs that they can actually have access to that. And then we talked about the risk and charge-off rates and your default rates, for the bank, that's being so high because we're lending to a population that obviously they have issues with the payback. So what is it that we can work with certain governments? I'm so sorry, this thing is so loud. What is it that we can do with certain governments that could hopefully maybe help leverage those default rates for the bank, but then also that will in turn help women or the general population to have access to that capital? Thank you.
So the first one, in terms of the fees, the group of women that we're talking about, ECOBANK in its 33 countries has created what we call an express account. An express account can be opened on your phone without going to the branch. It uses the Know Your Customer, KYC, from the mobile network operator. And within 33 countries, there are no fees. The second that we just launched 2 weeks ago is called a Rapid Transfer app. You can send money within Africa, no fees. The fee structure was based on the old model of banking, which was a brick and mortar. And brick and mortar requires cash. We are moving towards one which is leveraging the digital revolution. There are 700 million Africans that have a cell phone. Technically, everybody has a bank account. So from our perspective, we understand that this was a problem and we're working to fix it. The question around credit, capital, collateral. The government of Rwanda passed a law that allows 50-50 in terms of owning the land. And we can see the changes that have happened. This has nothing to do with the bank. So banks operate within the constraints of the policies of a country, of a region. So if Rwanda did it, what's waiting for the other 54 countries to do the same? And your voice counts more than ours to make sure that those policies are actually changing. In terms of a default rate, it's a similar situation with the issue around Schengen visas. Those that get it and play a bad game make it worse for everybody else that wants to apply for the Schengen visa. It's the same with the loan. Those that got the loans that don't repay, that disappear, create the problem for everybody else, because then the bank has no way to actually differentiate between the different actors because of the bad loans or bad debts that they need to write off. When it is written off, it means that it's somebody else's money that has been taken away. In Ghana recently, there were 5 banks that collapsed. The government had to come and bail those banks. But whose money is it? It's those that pay taxes. And not everybody pays taxes. So we can't look at these things in isolation. They are all connected. So if we have in society some that don't play ball, the rest will suffer. The question is, how do we as citizens find a way to ensure that we don't find ourselves in this situation? The responsibility is not always on governments. The responsibility is not always on the institutions. I don't think they are bad institutions. They are often bad people.
Merci, Carl. Moi, je suis du Bénin et je sais que la ECOBANK avait traité avec des compagnies d'assurance et il y a l'assurance vie. Et je pense que ce qu'on verse à chaque fin du mois est dérisoire. Donc, est-ce que sur la base de l'assurance vie, est-ce que vous pouvez conseiller les femmes de BPW à souscrire à une assurance vie pour les accompagner? Première question. Deuxième question, et la plupart du temps, on parle de l'informel, des femmes qui travaillent le plus dans l'informel. Je pense que c'est lié aussi à la banque. Comme celle qui m'a précédée a dit tout à l'heure, le taux de placement n'encourage pas. Et quand la femme dépose l'argent à la banque pour épargner, mais on se rend compte que ce qui lui revient à la fin de l'année n'est pas significatif. Dans ces conditions, elle préfère avoir ses fonds avec elle, les rouler et les tourner, et quand on fait la comparaison, c'est net. Pour cela, mon plaidoyer irait dans le sens d'une épargne forcée, comme nous avons l'habitude des tontines. C'est-à-dire, bon, au lieu de crédit, elle fait une tontine. Elle sait qu'à telle échéance, je pourrais avoir accès à ma tontine pour démarrer une activité, ainsi de suite. Donc, est-ce que vous pouvez nous conseiller, ou bien si la Fondation a mis en place par rapport à l'étude de la Banque mondiale, un système d'épargne forcée qui nous permettrait d'avoir accès au crédit, et aussi il faut voir le taux d'intérêt. Il faut nous fixer un seuil, le minimum, le maximum, et je pense que nous, en tant que leaders, nous pourrions conseiller les femmes qui ont besoin d'avoir accès au crédit, parce que dans certains pays, les problèmes de base légale sont réglés. L'accès au crédit, je voudrais parler plutôt des garanties. Donc, il y a le foncier souvent. Donc, la banque aime plutôt les hypothèques. Mais pour le capital que la femme qui se trouve dans l'informel et qui veut un crédit, pas un crédit bon. Elle va parler de crédit, mais en fait, elle avait besoin d'un capital. Donc, par rapport à ce capital, nous voulons savoir, est-ce que la banque peut travailler pour nous fixer un seuil et au minimum et au maximum? Je vous remercie.
C'est une approche qui, à mon avis, est très intéressante. Je vais commencer par un exemple. Il y a à peu près 5 ans, il y avait des agriculteurs chinois qui ont fait la grève. Et ils ont fait la grève parce qu'ils ont commencé à se poser la question par rapport à leur pension. Ceci signifie que quelque chose a changé dans l'économie chinoise. Pour que des agriculteurs commencent à penser à leur pension, c'est qu'ils peuvent se projeter dans le futur et pouvoir commencer à réfléchir à ce que leur vie sera quand ils vont arrêter de travailler. Ce changement ne s'est pas encore passé dans les économies africaines. On n'arrive pas à s'imaginer ce que ce sera après le travail parce qu'on est encore dans une situation où le coche de l'agriculture, on ne l'a pas encore réglé. Il n'y a aucune économie qui s'est développée sans avoir réglé la question de l'agriculture. Et sur le continent, on ne l'a pas encore fait. Quand je prends le point que vous soulevez par rapport à l'assurance vie, je pense que c'est une question qui est très technique, qu'on ne peut pas vraiment discuter ici parce que c'est vraiment par individu ou par personne. Ce qu'on peut faire, c'est de s'assurer que quand vous rentrez au Bénin, on organise une réunion avec mes collègues à Cotonou pour que vous puissiez en discuter de manière plus qu'on ait une idée du groupe de personnes, des femmes dont on parle et comment est-ce qu'on pourrait trouver une solution à ça. Le taux de placement et quelle est l'épargne qu'on peut constituer sur une période donnée pour pouvoir ensuite avoir accès à un crédit ou à un financement. Ça aussi, c'est quelque chose de très technique parce que ça dépendra du business que vous voulez monter, ça dépendra de ce que vous voulez mettre en place. Donc je pense que ça aussi, c'est une discussion qu'on peut avoir avec les équipes Togo, si vous avez, pardon, et le groupe de femmes dont on parle. Mais ce genre d'éléments que vous soulevez, c'est de réfléchir avec la banque à une solution. Et je pense que ça, c'est le travail qu'on est en train d'essayer de faire. On ne le fait pas toujours aussi bien, je le reconnais, mais on essaie. Et sur les éléments que vous avez soulevés, je pense qu'on va en discuter après, pour qu'on puisse ensuite, dès la semaine prochaine, voir si c'est possible qu'on organise une rencontre avec les collègues de ECOBANK à Cotonou. Merci beaucoup.
Oui.
Mais en fait, il y a le monsieur qui est d'abord, s'il vous plaît.
Sí, buenos días. Ok. Bien. Manifestaba de forma acertada que una de las opciones para obtener recursos para financiar determinados proyectos es la financiación colaborativa o participativa. Actualmente en Europa se financian cientos de proyectos mediante las plataformas de financiación participativa. Tengo la duda de cómo se está legislando actualmente, si los países realmente están afrontando esas legislaciones, porque evidentemente para poder entrar esas plataformas necesitan que esté meridianamente legislado y que haya cierta seguridad jurídica. Gracias.
Okay. So, around how do we bring citizens to resolve some of the issues and challenges that we face? One of them is access to money which is not earmarked or which is not linked to anything. And you have some of these examples on the continent. In Kenya, there's a platform called, I forgot the name now. No, not M-Pesa. I forgot the name. The name doesn't come back. But in Kenya, you have one example of an organization that has created a platform where individuals can actually post the project and people will contribute. In Europe, you have something which is called l'arrondi. which is taking the sense that when you go to the supermarket, if it costs, I don't know, 10 euros 55, then the 45 cents, they bring it to 11. And then that money is then used into the system. We don't yet have that at the continental level, but the African Union is actually working on ensuring that individuals that want to contribute can actually contribute. So the legislation exists in individual countries. I know about Kenya, I know about South Africa, I know about Ghana as well, but at the continental level, we don't yet have that framework. But it doesn't mean that you can't create, with digital financial services, a situation where there could be an account where people donate the money. The biggest example that we have is actually in China, with Tencent. Using the payment system, they raise billions of dollars every year by people donating from 1 cent and so on. But they have a size. And it's one company, one country with billions of people. Whereas on the African continent, it's 55 with 1.2 billion. So inter-country transfer is always a challenge. But ECOBANK has managed to convince regulators to allow us to do that inter-country transfer for 33 countries. So I live in Lome. I can send money to somebody in Zimbabwe using the ECOBANK platform. So we could use the same platform to raise money from individuals that believe in something that they want to see different. So if you have then someone that believes that they want to see something different in the women's of Benin, it is possible today with the technology to actually donate. About a year ago, at ECOBANK, we experimented with our own staff. So we have 16,000 people across 36 countries in Africa. We ask each staff for World Malaria Day to contribute $3 to buy a mosquito in the community. Our response rate was 25%, and we raised $22,000. So we do believe, and that's one of the things that we're also working at the moment in how to create that for the continent. We do believe that if people are given a reason to give, and they believe that the money will go to where individuals or the group has told them that it will go, they will contribute. The challenge that we face is that often groups show up, they ask for money, and often they don't do what they say they will do. Therefore, you end up in a situation where the trust that we have in donating is no longer there. But I do believe that it is a solution. If it works in Europe, I don't see why Europeans are more generous than African or Asians. It's not the case. It's just that you find a way to convince Europeans that the money will actually change the community. Thank you.
Last question, please.
Because
we're out of time already.
D'accord.
Thank you.
Tout à l'heure, vous avez annoncé des chiffres des femmes, beaucoup de femmes qui travaillent dans le secteur informel. On y revient parce que pour avoir accès à un crédit, il faut être légal, les déclarations, faire des déclarations fiscales. Et je pense qu'en travaillant dans le secteur informel, vous n'avez pas accès aux documents qui sont demandés par la banque pour pouvoir établir un dossier de crédit ou bien de capital qu'il faut quand les femmes demandent un crédit, comme on dit, capital ou crédit. Bon, nous, on fait l'amalgame de ça. Et c'est surtout ça, mais ce n'est pas à la banque d'établir ces déclarations. Ce sont au niveau de l'État qu'il y a des systèmes qui sont mis en place et ça fait un blocage pour les femmes. Parce que les femmes, il y a une partie qui savent lire et écrire, il y a une partie qui ne savent pas lire et écrire, mais elles travaillent beaucoup, elles font tourner beaucoup d'argent, mais elles ne savent pas comment s'organiser pour le faire. Mais ce qui bloque ces femmes, je vous assure, j'ai fait ma petite enquête, parce que les femmes ont peur de l'État. C'est-à-dire que je vais déclarer ce que les impôts vont venir me prendre va dépasser ce que je gagnerai. Et ça, c'est la réalité. C'est une triste réalité pour les femmes. Et c'est pourquoi beaucoup de femmes travaillent dans le secteur informel. Même si leur activité a des capitaux très importants, mais elles ne peuvent pas le faire parce qu'elles ont peur. Leur ennemi, c'est l'État pour les impôts. mais comment y faire? Donc, il faudrait aussi qu'on s'attable pour penser comment, au niveau du gouvernement, faire de telle sorte que ces femmes-là, qui sont parce qu'il y a d'autres qui sont répertoriées, qui sont regroupées en coopératives, et pour qu'on puisse trouver des solutions pour qu'elles puissent vraiment avoir des impôts, comme on dit, un peu plus allégés, si on peut faire pour les femmes, et puis pour qu'elles puissent vraiment agrandir et puis leur activité, et puis à encourager d'autres femmes aussi à rentrer dans le formel pour pouvoir accroître aussi leur activité. Et je voudrais sur ce point, demander à la banque, avec un groupe de femmes aussi entrepreneurs, réfléchir sur ce sujet pour qu'on puisse faire soumettre des solutions, présenter des solutions au niveau de l'État pour les déclarations d'impôts. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. I know that a lot of bank borrowers have not been faithful when it comes to paying back monies that have been borrowed. However, as a foundation, right, ECOBANK Foundation, what plans do you have for women groups? I think that you should adopt a kind of grant scheme which works better than loans. Also, some well-established firms with all their books intact still do not have access to bank facilities. What is happening? Also, we hear that sometimes most donor countries, well-developed countries, give monies to banks. I don't know if ECOBANK is part, but I've heard such. So these monies that you receive from these donor countries, how do you allocate these funds to the women for them to become beneficiaries? So these are some of the struggling questions I would like to have answers to. Thank you.
So, I mean, probably 3 points. Sur la question de la taxe, et cette question, je pense que la réflexion au niveau du gouvernement, c'est de comprendre comment est-ce que on arrive à percevoir, enfin, déjà, de dire que les gens du secteur informel ne paient pas de taxes, ce n'est pas vrai. Parce qu'il y a la taxe sur la valeur ajoutée, que tout le monde paye, quel que soit les produits et services. Si vous achetez du pain, si vous achetez de l'essence, donc il y a des produits qui sont de toute façon taxés. Donc ça, c'est le premier point. Le deuxième point, comment est-ce qu'on arrive à avoir un mécanisme dans lequel, si on doit taxer, disons, les femmes du secteur informel, la taxe est proportionnelle à l'activité, mais aussi il y a une façon de réinjecter cet argent dans leurs activités. Donc c'est un mécanisme auquel il faut réfléchir. Si on a besoin, par exemple, pour des raisons, mais ces femmes aussi paient les taxes municipales. Donc de dire qu'elles ne paient pas de taxes, ce n'est pas nécessairement vrai, parce qu'elles le font. Mais la question est de savoir comment est-ce que ces taxes, une fois qu'elles sont collectées, sont réinjectées dans leur activité. Je pense que c'est la discussion qu'on pourra avoir pour vraiment voir un cadre qui sort ces personnes du secteur informel. On devrait se poser la question de savoir pourquoi est-ce que la microfinance est aussi grandissante sur le continent. C'est un problème, pas nécessairement parce que je n'aime pas bien que les gens aient accès au crédit, mais regardez les taux. Mais beaucoup de femmes sont prêtes à accepter ces taux, mais elles ne sont pas prêtes à remplir certaines conditions que la banque demande. Mais la régulation n'est pas la même. Donc je pense qu'il y a une discussion à avoir aussi sur ces deux éléments. Est-ce que c'est juste la nécessité ou vraiment le besoin ardent qui pousse beaucoup de personnes à accepter les taux qui sont pratiqués par les institutions de microfinance? Et quelle est la solution qu'on pourrait trouver? One of the elements that was raised from a colleague from Ghana is around the grants. Often when big announcements are made, people don't read the fine prints. Money doesn't come free. It doesn't exist. Free money doesn't exist. There are always conditions that are attached. Even countries, when there are those big announcements around, will receive 100 millions or billions from different institutions. there are always conditions attached. The only way you can get free money, it may be if your parents give it to you or your friends give it to you. But an institution is regulated. So when the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, all institutions provide funding, there are always conditions. So you asked the question as to what do we do as a foundation to support women? We realize that we are a foundation of a bank. Banks are not designed to just give free money, but banks are designed to build systems. So at the ECOBANK Academy, we have been working to create a platform for actually women to be trained in areas where we have identified as issues that they face when they try to run businesses. We think that this is important because often it's a question around understanding what is being asked and not really that the women don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And it's a dual process. So we have had a series of discussions with different groups of association to understand how do we improve these courses, how do we make sure that we have options for these women. But one thing that I think is important to remember is that we are all in this together. It is not a question that the banks don't want to give money. The money doesn't belong to the bank. And that's something that we all need to remember. The money belongs to somebody else. And there's a reason why they believe that they should put that money in that bank. And if a bank does not respect its own regulatory, it will certainly be closed or fail. I gave the example of Ghana, and there are many other countries that banks have collapsed for a whole number of reasons. But when the bank collapses, are you guaranteed that you get your money back? Probably not. So I think part of the reason why I'm here is also to understand and hear from you as women, what is it that we need to improve? But the real question is, how do you help us improve? And have we heard what you said? On a entendu ce que vous avez dit. Et je pense que si on va dans la lancée de ce qu'a dit la Côte d'Ivoire, le Bénin, et aussi la collègue de la Gambie, sur comment créer ces mécanismes de discussion entre différentes entités, pour qu'au final, on puisse avoir plus de femmes qui puissent être des femmes qui créent de la richesse, mais pas qui essaient de sortir de la pauvreté. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Merci.
Gracias.